A city that vanished from the maps 25 years ago is now a ghost town with mysterious survivors. It is often said that humans haven't yet discovered endless secrets that lie under the marine life. There are old scriptures and different mythologies that claim of the cities that once existed on this planet, but they vanished under these water bodies with time. Even today, there are places like the famous Bermuda Triangle, and the mystery behind the strange phenomenon still remains unknown. While there are always myths and speculations, there exists a city that once drowned underwater and it now looks like a ghost town. It is not a myth or a made-up story. It all began in the 20th century, and the traces of which are still visible, and they have been captured and documented. Today we bring you the story of a city that vanished from the globe for almost decades after facing a flood. Read to the very end, as every little detail to this story will send chills down your spine. The tales from various mythologies entail stories about cities that are hidden from the world as they had apparently drowned or submerged underwater. Many theorists believe that these cities conceal priceless artifacts and invaluable treasures in them, dating back to the time when the Mayan civilization prevailed on Earth. But today we are going to shed light on a story which is no myth, it's for real. When Mother Nature decides to strike and unleashes its anger upon us, there isn't much we can do about it. Thousands of people around the globe lose their lives after being victimized by various sorts of natural disasters. Take the 2004 tsunami, for instance, that affected various parts of Southeast Asia, nearly destroying the cities it had hit. But can you imagine something of the magnitude that can drown a whole city and leave it submerged forever and vanish it from the map? As fictional it may sound, this is an incident that happened for real and left everyone who witnessed this gruesome phenomenon in shock and despair. We aren't fabricating anything up and have got proof as well in the face of various photographs that had been documented. We'll be revealing some photographs that are a living proof of what a flood can do to an existing city. So prepare yourself for this unbelievable yet real story that will certainly leave you jaw-dropped. Today, we bring to you the story along with some incredible pictures of a city that was once home to almost as much as 5,000 people. These pictures are proof that how cruel and terrifying nature can get, and why we shouldn't even dare or simply think about messing with it when and where this astounding yet horrifying phenomenon took place. Spoiler, it's somewhere in the South American continent. Are you an Indiana Jones fan, or have simply watched the movie or similar movies and the likes where the story revolves around the protagonist's hunt for a lost or hidden city? Even if you have, you can't just guess what's about to come, as this story is one of its kind. Curious much? We won't waste a minute, so don't go anywhere, as things are about to pick up a pace real quick. Villa Epecuén was once a small yet exuberant city, full of life and just located about 340 miles southwest from Buenos Aires, Argentina. Not long ago, the city was a tourist trap, as it attracted a lot of people back in the 70s and early 80s before it extinct. What made this place a cynosure for tourists was its renowned lake, which the Argentinians called Lago Epecuén. Villa Epecuén is situated along the shore of a lake named Lago Epecuén. The salt lake is similar to any other mountain lake, but there's one significant difference that makes it extraordinary. The water body is just second to the Dead Sea when it comes to the salt levels. It was also found that the salt levels of Lago Epecuén are 10 times the salt levels of any ocean. Although there's an interesting story behind the higher levels of salt present in the lake that we are about to discuss. There are many stories related to famous historical places, and this lake is no exception. It is said that the lake was created from the tears of a great Indian chief after he started crying. The reason for the chief to shed gallons of tears and form a lake as big was that he had suffered the pain of losing his beloved. Love can do wonders. While the story is nothing but a myth, what's not are the therapeutic powers of this lake. It is said that a bath in the lake is helpful in treating depression, anemia, and a variety of other ailments. The city of Villa Epecuén was once a hub of valuable minerals. It was at the beginning of the 20th century when the mining began here. The minerals extracted were majorly used for glass production and medicinal purposes. Sulfates were loaded and sent to the capital for sale so people could enjoy a thermal bath in the bathrooms of their homes. The city had its very first resort opened in 1921 that attracted many tourists who visited Buenos Aires. The era of the 60s and the 70s marked a hike in the number of visitors who traveled to this city, the reason for which was the mineral-rich lake. The water in the lake was believed to treat a variety of ailments, including several skin conditions, rheumatism, and even diabetes for that matter. Almost as much as 20,000 tourists would visit the town each summer when the tourism was at its peak. The city was deemed as the finest place in Argentina, and the fact was acknowledged by the people who traveled to this beautiful city from different places around the globe to spend their vacations and have a nice time. Everything was perfect until 1985, when the so-called pride of the city, the exquisite Lake Lago Epecuén, became the reason for this city's doom as it started to spill over the city. The Lake Lago Epecuén kept building up water, but there came a point when it had no space left in it to hold more water. It was when the lake started to overflow, and the locals immediately packed their bags and left the city. The city that once boasted of enthusiastic tourists was now a no man's land. The following picture will show you what the city of Villa Epecuén looked like after the flood. It was the November of 1985 that would change the face of this city and the lives of its citizens forever. When everyone least expected it to rain, the clouds gathered over the sky of Villa Epecuén, and it rained like anything. Though it is believed that the years of downpour had aggravated the situation, as the drainage system wasn't up to the mark and passive management was to be blamed for it. A dam built to safeguard the town against any potential danger was ruptured on the day of November 10, 1985. The water levels in the city began to rise rapidly, i.e., a centimeter per hour. Within 2 weeks, the city was 3 meters deep underwater. As it is clearly visible in this picture, the extremely beautiful city, which was once a top tourist spot, was now in a shambles. Everyone had to evacuate the place, and there was absolutely nothing the authorities could do to bring Villa Epecuén back to life. Keep scrolling to see how things used to be before the flood and the aftermath after the havoc the flood had caused. The dramatic difference in these two pictures is the sad reality of Villa Epecuén. The photograph held by this man in his hands was clicked almost 5 decades ago in the 1970s. It's almost unrecognizable. It looks almost as if these are the pictures of two different places. But you can count upon us, as these two pictures show the exact location of Villa Epecuén. A place once so exuberant and full of life is now nothing but a ghost town. And where did all the things that the people left behind go? We'll answer all these questions, but one at a time is the way to go. More than 30 years have gone by, but it only feels like yesterday to the survivors of the flood. Even though there were no casualties and not a single person had lost their life, but the impact of the flood had left the victims traumatized, something they haven't recovered from till date. How could they? They had lost everything, their homes, cars, jobs, businesses, that too overnight. It was something they hadn't imagined even in their worst nightmare, but unfortunately, it was their reality that they had lived. The psychological toll it took on them might remain forever, particularly in the older inhabitants who have spent a lifetime in Villa Epecuén, who now struggles to adapt with their new life and their new world. Even in the ordinary times when we have to move out of our homes and switch to a new place, be it for a new job or better opportunities, we tend to feel low, as there are a lot of sweet memories attached to a place. Imagine what would have gone through the citizens of Villa Epecuén when they had to leave their homes and their town in the wake of a flood that destroyed everything precious to them. Moreover, they had to move to a place they didn't have good relations with. It wasn't a choice they made, it was their only choice left. At last, they had to evacuate the place, unaware that they would never make it back again. It was the need of the situation, and the residents were asked to seek refuge in the closest region to Villa Epecuén, which happened to be Carhu. It was a difficult move, as the relations between the people of these two places were cold. As Villa Epecuén was closer to the lake and enjoyed greater revenues in the face of tourism, which indirectly strangled the growth and economy of Carhu, so the people in Carhu weren't much welcoming. The city of Villa Epecuén was underwater for more than 2 decades, and it was in 2009 when the water levels in the region first started to decrease. This image was released at the same time period, i.e., 2009, that shows how devastating things were. It was in 1993 when the gradually growing flood completely took over the city, covering it in water that stood 10 meters above the ground. It was too much for the city and its poor management to withstand, or even make a comeback for that matter. If this image is too much for you to handle, what's up next will blow your mind. The flood wreaked havoc on the city, and there's no denying that the city was in ruins. The tourists no more visit this place, as there's nothing left worth visiting. The only people to step foot into this town are those looking to recycle or retrieve lost items. There's not a single family that thought of restarting their lives in the city, and how would they, as the city looks nothing short of a scrapyard, and with no aid from the government, their best option was to move on. Judging by the pictures, the city looks like a gruesome crime scene or a city invaded by zombies or the aftermath of a war zone. But as we know, it is what nature does when it gets angry. By the looks of it, can you even imagine living here? We might not be able to spend a day here, but to your surprise, there's a man who actually lives here. Yes, without a family or even a dog to accompany him, and it has been a long time since he has been living here. Norma Berg is an old man and he is the only resident of Villa Epecuén. He's 81 years of age, and you can see in the picture that he has built himself a kitchen, and it is obvious that he spends his time alone. While living alone in a city that's abandoned would definitely strike as odd to anyone normal, but the old man is loving his time here. Well, he said so. You can read what he's got to say about it. I'm okay here. I am just alone. I read the newspaper, and I always think of the town's golden days, Norma Borg said. By the looks of it, he had a lot of memories associated with the places he had spent a lot of his time in Villa Epecuén during his youth, and he wanted to relive his past even if it means spending his life alone on a ghost town. As strange it is, it also shows his love and determination for this place. But even the brave old man sometimes bumps into things that sends a chill down his spine. Just think how strange it must get at times for Norma Berg, as he is the only person living in the abandoned city of Villa Epecuén. Although it's the choice he has made and he's got to live with it, but we must admit that he has quite a brave heart for an 81-year-old. The flowers you see resting over the skeleton were presented by Norma Berg when he accidentally bumped into this skeleton. The skeleton apparently floated out from the graveyard due to the flood and ended up here between the ruins. We woke up with water up to our ankles. We packed up what we could and left. Everyone just assumed it would be temporary, Norma exclaimed. And why wouldn't they? The people had put in all their money in new business ventures or to expand their already established work, as they had been waiting for months for the summer season to come. Those who could take absolutely everything with them, from their personal belongings to the kitchen sink. He added, Norma now lives in Carhu, much like all the refugees who migrated to the city after the flood of 1985. Carhu is now famous for its reputation as a destination for spa breaks. The thermal water of Lake Epecuén is delivered to hotels in Carhu via lorries on a regular basis. At present, the Lake Epecuén has retrieved its mineral concentration and has 10 times the salt in comparison to a sea. The gloomy setting of the city makes Villa Epecuén the cynosure of many Hollywood movies. The city seems to be an ideal setting that serves a particular genre. Many production studios from Hollywood have filmed a lot of horror movies here in the city because of its appearance. Maybe you have even seen some of those movies and thought it was a set. Next up is the most famous movie which had been filmed here. The most famous movie that was shot in this gloomy city is called And Soon the Darkness, that starred Carl Urban. Unfortunately, these movie studios and the actors are the only visitors the city of Villa Epecuén gets to welcome these days. On a different note, the city also has a slaughterhouse, and does it look terrifying? Look for yourself. Is there something scarier than a slaughterhouse? Yes, a ruined slaughterhouse that used to be hidden behind waters until now. Nonetheless, isn't it incredible what happened to this thriving city? What's scarier than a slaughterhouse? The answer is a slaughterhouse in ruins that was submerged under the lake until now. The records state that Villa Epecuén had nearly 280 thriving businesses before the flood destroyed everything. The city was also home to 5,000 people more or less, but more people moved in during the summer season when tourists would pop up and made this place ideal for thriving businesses that served them and relied heavily on tourism. It was a big blow to the businesses that made money from the tourism offered by this place. Villa Epecuén and its beautiful days are now a thing of the past. There are still regions which are partly submerged in water, and the beautiful roads that once led to city's eye-catching sight now leads into the water. The city will make its way to the history books, as it is impossible for it to bounce back, as the authorities never made an effort to restore it, and nor do they intend to. It's a shame that this beautiful town had to meet with such a fate. The story of this city is a living example of how a strike from nature can decimate the existence of life and leave it in ruins forever. We can only hope that the dams obstruct the lake and are able to prohibit it from pouring, so an incident in the likes of what happened in 1985 doesn't repeat itself. Even today, we come across news to various cities being affected by the flood. But did you ever imagine something of this magnitude could be caused by a flood? It's been a while since I visited my old house, Norma said, as he pointed towards the place that once used to be his childhood home. I was lucky enough. I had my whole life ahead of me when the flood took place. My children are Carhunses, And so are their children. They belong to the younger generation here, who fortunately did not witness the tragedy and are not tarnished by what happened. Life goes on, the old man said. The town is still open for a visit. While you may not get to visit the resorts, the shores, the hotels, or anything that existed in this city before 1985, you would have to take a walk on the Chucklehold tracks, surrounded by horror-struck trees. The first sight that a traveler gets to hold is of a slaughterhouse designed by the architect Francisco Salamone. Don't forget to visit the city's museum, which is a house to Villa Epecuén's story. You would find weirdly interesting items like llama wool jumpers, ponchos, and record players, which were retrieved from the city after 2009.